Hey, what's going on YouTube? James and Jay Kramer Fitness Protein Review Guide. Today, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Truvani plant protein. And here's the question for you. Do you think this thing is any good? It depends on which version of good you care about. The plus side is that Truvani hits a lot of things people want in a plant protein powder. Clean ingredients, organic sourcing, no fillers or gums, smooth flavor, and mixability to rave about for a plant protein powder. If your priority is a shake and drop in a smoothie, oats, or baking with minimal weird aftertaste, this thing truly delivers. If your standard for good includes hard proof, amino acid profile, verified protein yield, and third-party certificate, and since this is a plant-based protein, you expect there's going to be some solid minerals in this thing, you're going to be hugely disappointed. Label shares 20 grams protein per scoop, but when you dig deeper into the protein blend, the reality is you're closer to get 13 to 14 usable grams of protein. Now, Truvani loves to say their protein is third-party tested. It always sounds great. When you push for proof, the answers get a little fuzzy. They tell you that everything is batch tested for purity, heavy metals, glyphosates, and all the buzzwords that you're looking for in a plant protein. What they won't give you is the actual lab names, batch level COAs, or even a toxicology report. Now, for a plant protein powder, you may be wondering, is there a Prop 65? And that's always the kicker. Every Truvani protein bag carries a California Prop 65 warning listed here. That's the little label that says that product may expose you to lead or other heavy metals above safe harbor limits. Until Truvani shows a microgram level data, the Prop 65 warning is a red flag that you've been buying blind. Now, I did ask how much lead is actually in per scoop, and you know what? Truvani support told me they test every batch, but when I asked for that toxicology report or the microgram data, they flat out said no. Now, Truvani markets rigorous testing as a selling point, but the results never see the daylight. Brands like Ritual or Agent Roops publish batch level reports. Truvani gives you the badges, USDA Organic, vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free, but no actual protein verification or containment breakdown. Now let's go ahead and talk about the completeness. They never released the numbers. No leucine count, no BCAA disclosure, no PDCAAS score. When I asked, I got the usual PR line. Yes, it's complete. That's not transparency, that's marketing. The gaps start stacking up. First, there's no third-party verification for the protein quality. Despite all the claims of rigorous testing, Truvani has never published a single batch level COA or an amino acid profile. That should be the minimal. Secondly, the amino acid profile itself is menacing. Without leucine or BCAA data, you've got no way of knowing whether that 20 grams on the bag is high quality protein or just nitrogen content propping up the numbers. Third, the nutrition panel doesn't even line up with the ingredients. According to FDA Regulation 21 CFR 101.36, supplement labels have to reflect the actual nutrient content. This is where it kind of concerning because pea protein should naturally have 5 to 7 milligrams of iron per scoop. Now, if you're asking if this thing is amino spike, it can't say definitively, but here's what I can say. There's no verification, no amino acid data, and the label doesn't match the science, leaving buyers in the dark. Take a look at the ingredient profile. On paper, it looks great, short, sweet, simple, organic. But here's the weirdest part. This is a pea-based protein that lists 0 micrograms of iron, 0 potassium, 0 trace minerals. That doesn't sound like a plant-based protein. It sounds like a protein powder voided of essential minerals that's advertising as plant protein. That's very unusual, and that's very unheard of. Every peer-reviewed analysis of pea protein shows iron. For example, a 2018 study in amino acids found pea isolates consistently contain 5 to 7 milligrams per 30 grams of protein. Truvani's bag, 0. Now, when people look at Truvani, they usually stack it up against other big players in the plant-based protein market, brands like Ritual, Kachava, Orgain, and even Sunwarrior. Each one sits in a slightly different lane. Ritual pushes transparency and verified amino acid. Kachava is the calorie-heavy meal replacement shake. Orgain is the budget-friendly workhorse, and Sunwarrior aims for clean. So the real question becomes, how does Truvani hold up when you line it up against the competition? First up, let's compare Truvani chocolate versus Ritual chocolate, because when you look side by side, the gaps get a little real. Both say 20 grams of protein per serving. Truvani's label promises that. Ritual actually backs that up with an amino acid profile that published the leucine BCAA numbers, full transparency verified by Informed Protein. Here's where Truvani drops. While the bag promises 20 grams of usable protein, what you can actually realistically use when you factor in everything looks more like to be 13.5 grams compared to the 17 grams Ritual actually offers. Look at the price point. Truvani is $2.50 per serving. Ritual is a little pricier at $3.27. So you're paying more with Ritual, but you're also paying for proof, not just polish. Bottom line, if your goal is verified performance, Ritual is worth the extra cash. Truvani looks clean, tastes clean, but increasingly it looks like they're paying for style over confirmed substance. Okay, Kachava versus Truvani. These aren't subtle variations, they're different beasts. Kachava gives you 25 grams of protein per serving versus Truvani's 20, but once you dig in, the usual amount of protein with Kachava is probably closer to 19 versus Truvani's 13.5. Cost breakdown here, $2.50 per serving for Truvani, but when you look at Kachava, it skyrockets all the way up to $5.33 per serving. You're paying more for everything, more protein on the label, more extras in the formula, more carbs. Bottom line here between this comparison, if you want something more than just a clean shake, maybe a semi-meal replacement or something with bulk fiber, Kachava has its place, but if clean simplicity, organic sourcing, minimal carbs, and value per gram are what you care about, Truvani is more aligned. Now let's talk Truvani versus Sunwarrior, a clash between clean simplicity and lower calorie costs. On the label, Truvani promises 20 grams, Sunwarrior 17, but actually factoring in usability of the protein, you already know Truvani's closer to 13.5. Sunwarrior is closer to 13 grams. Now looking at the scoop size and servings, Sunwarrior has a smaller scoop, 25 grams versus 29. And more servings per bag, that often helps stretch your money. Speaking of price here, Truvani $2.50, Sunwarrior $1.62. You're paying more for Truvani's organic USDA non-GMO clean ingredient marketing. However, if your priority is clean, organic, and flavor plus mixability, Truvani still delivers some level of value, but if you're optimizing for calories, cost per usable protein, minimal sugar, Sunwarrior is, in my opinion, the smarter play here. Now, when you look at Orgain, you get a little bit more protein listed on the container, but when you pull back the curtain, you already know Truvani is closer to 13.5. However, Orgain shows about 16 grams closer to what they actually claim. Talking price, Orgain slips into the cheaper, often significantly so. You already know Truvani's $2.50, but Orgain drops closer to $1.55. Bottom line, if your priority is clean labels, organic sourcing, minimal fillers, Truvani still appeals. But when every macro counts and value per usable protein matters more than just organic badge, Orgain could be possibly the better value. On Amazon, Truvani sits about 4 out of 5 stars with over 20,000 verified reviews. Looks impressive on the surface, but let's see what people are actually saying. Now, looking at the 5-star fan club, first one here is saying one of the best plant-based proteins I've ever tried. Super clean, no weird additive. Second person share that only 5 ingredients, mixes perfectly in overnight oats. And then finally, no aftertaste, easy to cook with. I just wish the bags were bigger. That's the consistent praise. Clean ingredients, smooth flavor, and easy mixability. Let's take a look at the 1-star camps, and they share a different story. Horrible customer service, damaged pouch, no solution unless I sent photos. Someone brings up my argument as well. 0 iron listed when it's a pea protein. They claim third-party tested but won't show the proof. Finally, gritty, chalky, gave me a stomach ache, way too expensive to keep drinking. All right, let's go ahead and break this down. 3 pros, 3 cons. As always, pros first. Clean label, no gums, no stevia, no flow agents, no 20 ingredient blender, just a short list you can actually pronounce. Mixability. For plant protein, it dissolves surprisingly well, almost no clumps, even just water or almond milk. Flavor profile. Smooth, naturally sweet from monk fruit, no, not overpowering. It works good if you're baking it. Now, here comes the cons. Transparency gap. No amino acid profile, no leucine, no BCAA data, and oddly enough, zero iron listed when the pea protein should absolutely have some. No proof of testing here. They claim third-party verification, no batch-level COAs, or no toxicology report to offer for people inquiring about what triggered the Prop 65 warning. Finally, the price point. At $2.50 a serving, you're paying premium dollars for marketing polish, not verified performance. If you're wondering if one scoop is enough, short answer, no. One scoop of Truvani has a label claim of 20 grams of protein on label, but based on the protein sources involved in this tri-protein blend of plants, it's closer to 13, 14 grams of usable protein. As you already know, to fully trigger multiple protein synthesis after training, you need 25 grams of high quality protein with 2.5 to 3 grams leucine. Truvani threw that book out the door, and they don't even disclose anything. So if you're tossing in one scoop after workout thinking you're covered, think again. You need at least 1.5 scoops, maybe 2 on a good day. And this is, you're better off mixing it with a high protein skim milk to go ahead and stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So let's just go ahead and assemble ourselves a Truvani chocolate shake. One chocolate boy scoop going in. Let's go ahead, lock her up, shake. You know, for a plant-based protein powder, Truvani mixes fantastic. And then looking underneath it here, amazing. I would imagine most of the women that are using this protein powder aren't going to be using this as a post-workout. They're probably going to be using this as an extra way to supplement their dietary choices to hit their daily protein mark. So this might be going into overnight oats. This could be going into brownies, cookies as a baking additive. And as always, I always look at it as a muscle building perspective. So this is the reason why we use it as a shaker. We are doing the Truvani chocolate taste test. Cheers. So if you're someone who has consistently drank plant proteins, you're going to get the normal, in this case, more of a velvety, I wouldn't say it's a velvety, chocolatey texture. Taste is solid, but as you know, with any kind of these plant protein powders, it's got, you know, not a weird aftertaste. It's the accustomed aftertaste when you drink a plant protein powder. However, for me, I don't have a problem drinking this with water. The question is, would I buy this chocolate plant protein powder again? I think it does a serviceable job. However, if you're someone new to drinking plant protein powders, I think there are better choices in the market for plant protein just based on flavor. I think Truvani does a serviceable job. It is a better tasting one than their dairy-based protein powder. But overall, if you're new to protein powders, this one might be more of a pass. I think Sunwarrior tastes better than this one, and it doesn't come with that gritty, chalky, plant-based taste afterwards or mouthfeel. But if you're someone who is experienced to drinking plant-based protein powders, I think you will not mind drinking this one. It's okay. So, who is this protein powder really for? And honestly, this is kind of the protein powder that is best fit for casual users. People who want a clean label scoop in their protein in their morning smoothie stirred into oats or sprinkled on top of granola. If you're chasing muscle recovery, hitting leucine thresholds, or demanding verified amino data, this protein powder is not for your post-workout shake. Now, going over a quick recap of competitors against this. Ritual hits the bar with the full amino transparency and third-party testing. Proof instead of promises. Kachava packs extras and a fuller profile, making it a better functional or light meal replacement shake. However, at almost $80 per bag, it's kind of a tough recommendation. Now looking at Orgain, which doubled down on the value with more protein per scoop at almost half the cost as this. And then finally, if you want something that offers a better tasting experience, but doesn't have all the USDA Organic badges, Sunwarrior at least publishes an amino acid profile. So where does it leave us for a score on Truvani? I score it at a 29.5 out of 50, 59%. It earned points for flavor, mixability, and a minimalist label, but lost ground on protein density. Big red flag on the missing iron component. And then, of course, finally, the third-party verification. Bottom line, Truvani is clean, but not complete. Keep it as a lifestyle shake in your Snapchat stories. But for serious athletes who care about performance in and out of the gym, All right, that's my full breakdown for Truvani plant-based protein powder. Now I want to hear from you. Have you tried Truvani? Did you notice the same gaps I called out, or do you think it lives up to the clean label height based on the price point? Drop your experiences and questions in the comments downstairs. I read every single one. Now, if you want to dig deeper, check out the full written review on my website, drakekramerfitness.com, where I've got the side-by-side protein comparisons, scoring breakdown, and sourcing details I couldn't fit into this video. And as always, thanks for sticking with me to the end of this video. And as always, make it a great day. Is this thing any good? That's the question. It depends on what you're rolling.